Welcome to What If Multiverse, a channel where we explore the worlds that never were and the histories that could have been. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give us a like so we can keep bringing you these cinematic journeys every week. If that morning of October 7th had never come, Gaza would still wake up to the smell of fresh bread. The call to prayer would echo through its narrow streets, and its people, despite hardship, would begin their day with fragile but real peace. Children with colorful school bags would play in the alleys, and mothers would not fear that this might be the last day they saw their children. The markets of Khan Yunis would still be filled with the noise of vendors selling spices and fruit. Fishermen would push their boats into the sea, hoping for a small catch to place on their humble tables. If that dark day had never occurred, the Gaza War of 2023 would never have begun. Thousands would not have been killed, and millions would not have been displaced from their homes. Houses that today lie in ruins would still be standing, and children's memories would still live inside their small rooms. Israel and Palestine would not have entered one of the bloodiest chapters of modern history. The Middle East would not have sunk so quickly into fire and destruction. In Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu would still be entangled in political crises and judicial reform protests. But he would not be under the crushing pressure of unprecedented war. The demonstrations in Tel Aviv would continue, growing louder each week. Israeli society might even fracture further from within under domestic pressure. In the Arab world, normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel would keep moving forward under American mediation. Perhaps even a historic agreement would have been reached. Global public opinion would not be so polarized against Israel. The streets of Europe and America would not have been stages for massive protests. University campuses in the West would still have a voice, but not the storm we see today. Israel's image in international media would not have been so deeply scarred. Its legitimacy would not have eroded so quickly. In Gaza, despite the blockade, people would still have a chance to live and breathe. They would still hold on to hope that tomorrow could be better. Children could chase plastic balls through the streets without fear. Mothers would not look up in terror at warplanes above their heads. Fathers would still be able to work and provide food for their families. If October 7th had never happened, Hezbollah would have remained in the realm of rhetoric. Hassan Nasrallah would still threaten in speeches, but not with daily rockets. Israel's northern borders would have been calmer and quieter. Missiles would not have been tearing the skies apart. Border villages would not have been living in constant fear of attack. Iran would have focused more on nuclear negotiations. Iran would also have placed greater emphasis on regional diplomacy. It would have spent less energy managing emergencies of war. Turkey would have continued its role as mediator. Qatar would have been active in back-channel discussions. Egypt would still have acted as a regional broker in times of tension. Humanitarian and political pressures would not have exploded as they have today. But this was only half the story, because the other half reveals a harsher truth. The axis of resistance that Iran had built for years was still there, like fire beneath the ashes. It was waiting only for a spark to rise again and consume the region. Through funding, Iran had strengthened Hamas and Islamic Jihad into formidable forces. Through training, it had given them skills far beyond local militias. Through weapons, it had armed them with the means to strike across borders. These groups built tunnels beneath Gaza instead of schools above ground. They created stockpiles of rockets instead of hospitals. In Lebanon, Hezbollah grew stronger with Tehran's direct support. Nasrallah's speeches repeated the promise of a coming reckoning. The 12-day war of 2021 had already shown that every ceasefire was only temporary. Each truce was just a pause before another escalation. Each moment of calm was only the silence before the storm. So even if October 7th had never happened, the clash would still have come. It would have come from another place or at another time, because fire under the ashes cannot remain hidden forever. The real question for Israel was whether it should prepare for endless wars or end the threat once and for all. For many in Israel, the survival of their nation was tied directly to the destruction of this network. For them, war was not a choice, but a necessity for life itself. Had October 7th not taken place, Israel might have planned its strategy with greater calm. It could have prepared carefully for rooting out its enemies in a decisive operation. Normalization with Arab states could have progressed alongside its quiet preparations. Israel could have readied itself for the ultimate confrontation, one that it believed must end the nightmare forever. In that imagined world, Gaza would still be full of life and color, but the shadow of Iran's axis of resistance would have grown heavier with each passing day. Ordinary people would keep struggling to live under harsh conditions. But the leaders of Hamas and Islamic Jihad would have walked another path. They would have invested in rockets instead of education and hospitals. They would have taken the youth hostage under an endless ideology of war. And so the moment of confrontation would still have been inevitable. Gaza's fragile peace would be sacrificed by armed leaders, not its ordinary citizens. People who could have played in alleys and gathered at family tables became victims of a war they never chose. This is exactly what Israel points to. Wars are started by extremists, not ordinary men, women, and children. In the alternate world of what if, Israel might have continued diplomacy and avoided extraordinary crisis. But with Iran's axis of resistance, that peaceful future was never truly possible. The network needed war to survive, and sooner or later another spark would ignite it. And so our story reaches a crucial point where alternate history meets bitter reality. If that day had never come, Gaza's markets might still be alive with sound and color. Children might still be in schools and families still intact under one roof. The coastline might still be lined with fishing boats bringing home their daily catch. The streets might still be filled with the smell of spices and coffee. Fragile hope might still have lived inside the hearts of the people. But Iran's axis chose to turn fragile peace into absolute hell instead. Israel sooner or later would have been forced to make a fateful decision. That decision would have had no way back once it was taken. For Israel, endless cycles of war and ceasefire meant only deeper wounds. So the final choice became clear: to root out these groups once and for all. From Israel's perspective, This was the only way to guarantee a safer future. But for ordinary people, both Israelis and Palestinians, it meant more blood and destruction. At the end of this story, we see a world that could have been calmer and more peaceful. It could have allowed Gazans to live their lives with families in safety. But history chose another road, a road filled with war and sorrow. The fire began from a spark that might never have been lit in the first place. Israel now moves forward with the conviction that survival depends on destroying its enemies completely. This story reminds us of a bitter truth. Sometimes peace that could have lasted is sacrificed by those who see war as the only path. What remains is an unanswered question. Does the destruction of enemies bring true peace, or only another chapter of blood and ashes? Thank you for watching What If Multiverse, the place where alternate history comes alive. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts. Stay tuned, because every week we bring you more journeys into alternate history and the worlds that might have been.